Chapter 3. Rushes and Flags. Every morning after Mary and Laura had done the dishes, made their bed, and swept the floor, they could go out to play. All around the door the morning glory flowers were fresh and new, springing with all their might out of the garden green leaves. All along Plum Creek the birds were talking. Sometimes a bird sang, but mostly they talked. Tweet, tweet, or twitty, twit, tweet, one said. Then another said, chee, 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 and another laughed, ha, ha, tree-a-lo, chee. Laura and Mary went over the top of their house and down along the path where Pa led the oxen to the water. There along the creek rushes were growing, and blue flags. Every morning the blue flags were new. They stood up dark blue and proud among the green rushes. Each blue flag had 3 velvet petals that curved down like a lady's dress over hoops. From its waist 3 ruffled silky petals stood up and curved together. When Laura looked down inside them, she saw 3 narrow pale tongues, and each tongue had a sharp little strip of golden fur on it. Sometimes a fat bumblebee, all black velvet and gold, was bumbling and butting there. The flat creek bank was warm, soft mud. Little pale yellow and pale blue butterflies hovered over there, and alighted and sipped. Bright dragonflies flew on blurry wings. The mud squeezed up between Laura's toes, where she stepped and where Mary stepped, and where the oxen had walked, there were tiny pools of water in their footprints. Where they waded in the shallow water, a footprint would not stay. First, a swirl like smoke came up from it and wavered away in the clear water. Then the footprint slowly melted. The toes smoothed out, and the heel was only a small hollow. There were tiny fishes in the water. They were so small that you could hardly see them. Only when they went swiftly, sometimes a silvery belly flashed. When Laura and Mary stood still, these little fishes swarmed around their feet and nibbled. It was a tickly feeling. On top of the water bugs skated. They had tall legs, and each of their feet had a wee dent in the water. It was hard to see a water bug. He skated so fast that before you saw him, he was somewhere else. The rushes in the wind made a wild, lonely sound. They were not soft and flat like grass. They were hard and round and sleek and jointed. One day, when Laura was wading in a deep place by the rushes, she took hold of a big one to pull herself up on the bank. It squeaked. For a minute, Laura could hardly breathe. Then she pulled another. It squeaked and came in 2. The rushes were little hollow tubes fitted together at the joints. The tubes squeaked when you pulled them apart. They squeaked when you pushed them together again, too. Laura and Mary pulled them apart to hear them squeak. Then they put little ones together to make necklaces. They put big ones together to make long tubes. They blew through the tubes into the creek and to make bubbles. They blew at the little fishes and scared them away. Whenever they were thirsty, they could draw up long drinks of water through those tubes. Ma laughed when Laura and Mary came to dinner and supper, all splashed and muddy, with green necklaces around their necks and the long green tubes in their hands. They brought their bouquets of blue flags, and she put them on the table to make it pretty. "I declare," she said, "you 2 play in the creek so much, you'll be turning to water bugs." Pa and Ma did not care how much they played in the creek, only that they must never go upstream, beyond the little willow valley. The creek came around a curve there. It came out of a hole full of deep, dark water. They must never go near enough to that hole, even to see it. "Some day I'll take you there," Pa promised them. And one Sunday afternoon he told them that this was that day. Chapter 4. Deep Water. In the dugout, Laura and Mary took off all their clothes, and over their bare skins they put on old patched dresses. Ma tied on her sunbonnet, Pa took Carrie on his arm, and they all set out. They went past the cattle path and the rushes, past the willow valley and the plum thickets. They went down a steep grassy bank and then across a level place where the grass was tall and coarse. They passed a high, almost straight-up wall of earth where no grass grew. "What is that, Pa?" Laura asked. And Pa said, "That is a tableland, Laura." He pushed on through the thick, tall grass, making a path for Ma and Mary and Laura. Suddenly they came out of the high grass, and the creek was there. It ran twinkling over white gravel into a wide pool, curved against a low bank where the grass was short. Tall willows stood up on the other end of the pool. Flat on the water lay a shimmery picture of those willows, with every green leaf fluttering. Ma sat on the grass bank and kept Carrie with her, while Laura and Mary waded into the pool. "Stay near the edge, girls," Ma told them. "Don't go in where it's deep." The water came up under their skirts and made them float. Then the calico got wet and stuck to their legs. Laura went in deeper and deeper. The water came up and up, almost to her waist. She squatted down, and it came to her chin. Everything was watery, cool, and unsteady. Laura felt very light. Her feet were so light that she almost lifted off the creek bottom. She hopped and splashed with her arms. "Oh, Laura, don't!" Mary cried. "Don't go in any farther, Laura," said Ma. Laura kept on splashing. One big splash lifted both feet. Her feet came up, her arms did as they pleased. Her head went under the water. She was scared. There was nothing to hold on to, nothing solid anywhere. Then she was standing up, streaming water all over, but her feet were solid. Nobody had seen that. Mary was tucking up her skirts. Ma was playing with Carrie. Pa was out of sight among the willows. Laura walked as fast as she could in the water. She stepped down deeper and deeper. The water came up past her middle and up to her arms. Suddenly, deep down in the water, something grabbed her foot. The thing jerked, and down she went into the deep water. She couldn't breathe, and she couldn't see. She grabbed and could not get a hold of anything. Water filled her ears and her eyes and her mouth. Then her head came out of the water close to Pa's head. Pa was holding her. "Well, young lady," Pa said, "you went out too far, and how did you like it?" Laura could not speak. She had to breathe. "You heard Ma tell you to stay close to the bank," said Pa. "Why didn't you obey her? You deserved a ducking, and I ducked you. Next time you'll do as you're told." "Yes, Pa," Laura spluttered. "Oh, Pa, please do it again." Pa said, "Well, I'll—" Then his great laughter rang among the willows. "Why didn't you holler when I ducked you?" he asked Laura. "Weren't you scared?" I was awful scared," Laura gasped. "But please do it again." Then she asked him, "How did you get down there, Pa?" Pa told her he had swum under the water from the willows, but they could not stay in the deep water. They must go near the bank and play with Mary. All that afternoon, Pa and Laura and Mary played in the water. They waded and they fought water fights, and whenever Laura and Mary went near the deep water, Pa ducked them. Mary was a good girl after one ducking, but Laura was ducked many times. Then it was almost chore time, and they had to go home. They went dripping along the path through the tall grass, and when they came to the tableland, Laura wanted to climb it. Pa climbed part way up, and Laura and Mary climbing, holding his hand. The dry dirt slipped and slid. Tangled grass roots hung down from the bulging edge overhead. Then Pa lifted Laura up and set her on the tableland. It really was like a big table. That ground rose up high above the tall grasses, and it was round and flat on top. The grass there was short and soft. Pa and Laura and Mary stood up on the top of that tableland and looked over the grass tops and the pool to the prairie beyond. They looked all around at prairie stretching to the rim of the sky. Then they had to slide down again to the lowland and go home. That had been a wonderful afternoon. "It's been lots of fun," Pa said, "but you girls remember what I told you. Don't you ever go near that swimming hole unless I am with you."